These two games from two completely separate genres both perfected their combat. It was crunchy, stylish, satisfying, so naturally, nobody played them. Welcome to the Casualty List, where we honor the games that deserve standing ovations, but got ghosted instead. This is episode 2.
So my next one, we are going way back. And you might say, how far are we going back? And I say all the way to PlayStation 1.
All the way back.
Or what we just called PlayStation. Which was G-Police on the OG PlayStation. In fact, this was so long ago that the PlayStation 1 games were in the long case instead of the jewel case. Yeah, this looked like a video rental instead of a game when you tried to buy it. So G-Police, in this game, it's obviously in a far future, and you remember this police unit that flies these, like, they're technically not helicopters because they don't have a rotary blade, so it's like a hover something, whatever you want to call it. I can't remember what they were. And you're in these domed cities because it's too dangerous to go outside these domed cities. But in this world, there's no more country-based governments. All the war, and this is the feature set that I think was a trendsetter, is that not so much in movies, because we'd already had movies where this happened, but never games, where the world is ran by these mega corporations. And you're flying these hovercraft, and no, the graphics don't hold up. But I got to tell you, the gameplay in this was legit, flying around and strafing in these. You felt really good when the missions were hard, but you felt like it was satisfying. And I love flying in games anyway, but when you got beat, you knew you deserved to be beat. It was one of those.
It was one of those where it always felt fair. Like, as soon as you died, you're like, I know what I did wrong. I know what I did wrong that made that happen. Instead of being like, no, he can't do that. That's cheating. It's one of those where it happens. You're like, yep, I deserve that.
And, it was kind of unforgiving in that, crashing into things killed your vehicle like it should have. And you could get one hit by enemies that just got off a lucky shot, which is, true to life. But I think the biggest piece to take away from a feature set is the fact that this was a future dominated by mega corporations, very, very Blade Runner-esque in this type of world. And man, I fell in love with this game. About the same time I was playing Wing Commander 4 with Biff and Mark Hamill, which was a space sim. But also, this game right here, man, this was it. I love this game. I also, by the way, just saw you slide that picture in, and you're right, and we'll get to that later. But not going to spend a lot of time on this other than to say that this dominated a lot more in my PS1 time than I wanted to, because when you think about the PS1, I'm thinking Final Fantasy 7, Final Fantasy 8, so many different Metal Gear Solid 2, so many different great games. Metal Gear Solid
2 was so good, yeah.
Oh man, and so many great games. And for me, this was one of those that, like, I'd go to school and nobody was playing this, but I'd show it to them and they're like, holy shit. And then they'd end up playing it. So anyway.
Was it level based? Or it was like different, like level to level?
It was level to level. You could level up your vehicle too, where you eventually had, like, you first started out with like dumb rockets. So you literally had to aim and nail it. You couldn't even get homing rockets at the beginning. So it was actually harder at the beginning than the end. But, by the end.
How many times have we heard that?
Yeah. You're by the end of the game, you're flying this uber OP godlike vehicle.
But see, that's one great thing too, that whenever it's done well in games, that's one of my favorite things, is whenever you start off and you're like, man, I'm getting my ass kicked, and you're like, you're fighting and scratching and clawing. But it's so satisfying as you build up. And then these dudes that were eating your lunch whenever you started off, you're like swatting them away like they're nothing. Like, whenever you, like, that's the reward on so many, like, whenever it's done well, like, that feels like the reward, where you started off as this peon and you become this unstoppable beast, and you get to play this, like, power fantasy by the end of it.
And, and not to get mystical and crazy philosophical here, but that's the human condition. We have to have struggle. We can't appreciate the good times without struggle. And I think in a lot of ways, these type of games, which I think that's the big draw for a lot of Dark Souls players, is that they feel like they've done something and they deserve the right to talk some shit when they beat this stuff. So this was a game that was like that. And so I really enjoyed it. G-Police. If you can find that, good luck.
Oh, hey there. If you're still watching, congratulations. You clearly have excellent taste. And I would really appreciate it if you helped keep this channel off of somebody else's casualty list. Just go ahead and hit like and subscribe and tell us in the comments, what games do you think got criminally overlooked? All right, on to game 2. It's like some of these games you haven't thought of in forever, and you need something to jog your memory about it.
Trips it, yeah.
And that was why you were talking about, I don't even remember what it was that you said, where I was like, wait a second. I know one. And so that is Sleeping Dogs, guys. This is one that I actually mentioned again. I'm going to drop it again on the GTA 6 trailer watch along that or slideshow. I mentioned in passing Sleeping Dogs, and Sleeping Dogs. There was a series called True Crime, and it was True Crime, and then there's True Crime Streets of LA, and it was basically,
I remember that.
Yeah, it was basically a GTA like game where you were the cop. It was that formula. And then there was work on this other game, and it dropped the True Crime moniker, and it became its own thing, and that became Sleeping Dogs. And this
game was phenomenal, dude.
Yeah, it was on the original Xbox, and then the definitive edition released on the Xbox One, where had revamped
This was the
graphics.
one I played.
Yes. And if you are going to play any of them, make it this one for sure.
Make it this one for sure.
Got all the DLC, all that stuff.
Yep.
And it also had a bit of a troubled production.
It did.
It had some big Hollywood actors as voice actors in the game for a bit. And then you're playing through the game, and all of a sudden these big name Hollywood actors that were in it, all of a sudden they stopped showing up. And it's because of the sort of the constant changes that they had in the game. But despite the issues and the troubles that they kind of ran into throughout production, the game that we got was really fun and very underappreciated, and it had
unique.
And it had several aspects that maybe this one aspect was probably a thing, but this one kind of took it to a different level. And then there's another thing that I've never seen really at that point, and maybe not even since. But one of the things that it did, so the combat was great. So you got to do the sort of brawler combat, except your guy was actually a martial artist. So you weren't just like in GTA where you're just like a 1-2-3 combo or maybe a weak knee. Like, this dude had actual skills. You could train those skills. You could learn new things. And he would change depending on your environment. So you would have, this is one where environmental damage or environmental hazards were not new. You know, that even happened in Mortal Kombat. But this made them feel like a Jackie Chan movie whenever you were playing through these things. You know, you wouldn't have to do anything. That's how a lot of people found out that it was even a thing, is they did it by accident. So then you could start setting it up. So you could start setting it up by like, oh, let me throw somebody against this thing and do an attack and see what happens. And usually you did something special, but a lot of times you could just be like doing something next to an ATM or whatever and do like a normal attack. And next thing you know, this dude's grabbing somebody by the head and shoving them into the keypad. Sleeping Dogs has the Yakuza vibe, just without it just doesn't do the zaniness that Yakuza goes off into.
Yeah, Yakuza goes off on a break. But I will say this too, is if you're out there and you end up watching this episode and you have a chance to play this, if you liked the show Woo Assassins on Netflix, I got very Woo Assassin vibes. In fact, I got Sleeping Dog vibes watching Woo Assassins.
Yeah, the combat felt so clean and refreshing.
Dude. Visceral combat.
Yeah, and you felt like a badass. Like, it's one of those things where it's like you start doing this stuff and then you feel unstoppable. So you're doing the thing where you put somebody down on the counter and then you jump up and you grab the little sliding shield and bring it down on top of them. You know, like I said, it's straight up Jackie Chan movie that you could do this with, and it was addictive. It was one of those things where you wanted to get into fights. You would like you'd like look around and be like, I bet this would be a good place to get into a fight, you know. And you start to.
Did you play Sifu?
Yes.
Did it remind you any of this? Yeah. Okay.
It was like this meets John Wick. Sifu, because you're in these very enclosed environments, but Sifu, you're grabbing pool cues and all that stuff. And the main crux, like what you needed to do in Sifu, was use your environment. Like, whereas this had the aspects where you could start to use the environment. Sifu, if you didn't use the environment, you were not getting through.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I had never seen in any game prior to this, and I don't know as if I've seen it in a game since, was if you do something like so many times, it's now less this whenever you play like a GTA game or a GTA like, where before it used to be a big thing where it's like, oh, get to this location and you'd have a timer and you got to get to this location by this time. And it was a pain in the ass. GTA, Driver, they all did it. And it was such a pain. This game, they would do that. But if you didn't make it, you failed the mission, game went on. It was like, okay, well, that's that. That character's dead now. You didn't save him. So moving on along. And the game went on. So if you failed the mission, you could choose to replay it. But if you didn't want to replay it, you didn't have to. And the story would go on with that mission in a fail state, which I have not seen since, really. Like most games do not do that. So this is one where it's like, oh, yep, you failed. You want to keep going? All right, cool. You're just not going to talk to that guy again.
Yeah, and like Witcher 3 had a couple of those. You could fail, or you pick the wrong side of an argument and you would fail and you got to keep going. I love it when games let you continue with your failure and make you live with it. Dude, yeah, this was what a great call. This might be one of the better calls tonight with Sleeping Dogs. This was ahead of its time. I really felt like it was.
I still want them to do another one. In fact, during, I don't know if it was the Game Awards or it was one of those game shows that come where they showed all the trailers where they did a game that I thought it was going to be Sleeping Dogs. It turned out not to be. I don't remember what it is, but I was thinking like it was going to be a Sleeping Dogs 2, and I got all excited because it looked very Sleeping Dogs like. Although the game that they did show looks like it's going to be very much kind of in the spiritual successor, perhaps, to Sleeping Dogs, and I hope it will be, because this game, again, it did not sell great. It
came out in an era when shooters were freaking king, and if it wasn't shooters, everybody wanted special powers
or the I mean, and the reason that it was what it was because it was also a time when there was a lot of GTA likes. But that's the thing, is there were a lot of GTA likes, and you had Saints Row and this and that, and most of them sucked. But this one didn't suck, and it changed the formula. And unfortunately, because it was in a very dense competitive genre, it drowned, and it went into obscurity, and it deserved so much better.
Yeah, the script flip that this game did was amazing. And dude, what a great call. What a good pull late.
Thank you so much for sticking around until the end. That was episode 2 of the Casualty List, aka the only show trying to avenge the combat systems that you totally forgot existed. What game should we resurrect next? Go ahead and tell us in the comments before the algorithm buries this channel too. I'll see you in the next episode, and go ahead and leave a like on your way out.